Well, hello there, and thank you for joining me for the latest edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook, and we have a very busy show this week. Later on, you'll meet the new chair of the Richmond County Literacy Network, Paula Kavanaugh. We'll also visit the Medicine Shoppe in Port Hawkesbury and speak to owner-operator Michael Hatt about a new provincially run community health clinic that's set up shop at the pharmacy. And we begin with the latest on the Pondville beach restoration situation. Once again, it's dominating headlines this week in Richmond County and across the Strait area. In a few minutes' time, you're going to hear from Pondville resident Margaret Herdman about her desires for the beach restoration project and what the beach means to her and her family. But we begin with some footage from the Richmond Council Committee of the Whole meeting that took place just a couple of nights ago here in Arishat. There was a lot of discussion about Pondville Beach during the question and answer period at the end of the council meeting, and you're going to hear from Lisa Boudreau, who is chairing a committee looking for upgrades to the beach, but as well Warden Amanda Mumberket, CAO Troy McCulloch, and several other members of Richmond Municipal Council answering questions about the municipality's potential involvement in the beach campaign, but also about some new developments on the provincial front. So, to kick things off, here is Lisa Boudreau launching the first question as part of the Committee of the Whole question period, taking place at the Richmond Municipal Building in Arishat on Monday, May the 8th.
Safe Pondville Beach Provincial Park is a movement that began just a few weeks ago, and it's gained some very great momentum. And we now have over 900 people on our Facebook likes, and we have today hit the 900 mark for those who have signed the online petition. So for us, St. Pondville Beach Provincial Park is composed of a group of concerned citizens whose purpose is to engage and the funding partners of places like Pondville Beach and to advocate for very much needed improvements and accessibility to our local and public places. So the effects of walking Pondville Beach, playing in the sand, gathering with friends, viewing and listening to sounds of the waves, witnessing the beautiful sunrises we have, and welcoming tourists and the impact on physical fitness, mental health, and well-being. And Pondville Beach is the only park accessible, sandy beach accessible by vehicle on Ilma Dam. And the immeasurable value that the place like this has for discovery, lifelong learning, love and nature and advocacy for natural places and where it begins. So the municipality is supporting Point Michel Beach by providing a new building to house materials for enhanced accessibility and recreation programming that is delivered there as a provincial lifeguard staffed beach. Right. I understood from your email today that there was some considerations there. Mm-hmm. All the funds flowing through the municipality from the province earmarked for provincial beaches limited to those with lifeguard services? Or is it the fact that the municipal recreational programming is ongoing at this beach that municipal funds support this beach year after year?
So provincial funds, you're asking about provincial funds that are flowing through the municipality to support beaches?
So what I'm saying is year after year, Point Michel receives funding through this municipality for either accessibility or programming. Right. What I'm asking is it because it is a lifeguard staffed beach and allocated that way? Yeah. Or is it because the municipality actually runs recreational programming on that beach? Which is
it's actually both. So, so we are able to provide. Recreational activities at Point Michel Beach because it is lifeguarded, and it's certainly from a risk mitigation and insurance. Even trying to get insurance, that lifeguard staffing is definitely something that we would require in order to be able to do water-based programming. We do the sandcastle competitions on both beaches because it's land-based, right? So that's a little bit, it's easier for us to mitigate that risk. But because it's lifeguarded, we're able to offer the recreation programming. So then what's happened with the structure at Point Michel Beach is that council allocated a certain amount of money because in order to have that programming happening there, we needed storage for the surfboards and this
Moby mats.
Stuff that I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Whatever. Yeah, all the recreational kind of facilities there. And again, it's because it's lifeguarded. So that's not provincial money that's flowing from the province through the municipality to the beach. It's specifically municipal funding that we're investing to support the rec programming that we're able to do because the province has a lifeguarded location there. So I hope, does that clarify? Like,
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
If the lifeguard was not at the beach, and there were
Yeah.
other recreational activities going on, would the municipality still be funding these programs?
So I guess the answer is potentially. So if there was no lifeguard at the beach, it's highly unlikely, and I would say almost zero probability that we would host water-based recreation activities at that beach. Again, if it was like a sandcastle competition, or I'm trying to think what else, like a, I don't know.
Beach
say-
volleyball.
Beach
or something.
volleyball, or something that was land-based, we could potentially go ahead and do it. We generally would have to apply, we have to make an application to the province to be able to use that space, though, to do it. And certainly we've had to make that application to put a kind of a shed on there. Any of the other facilities that would be at Point Michaud or any other beach, they're all directly provincially invested in and maintained. They're not the municipality.
70% of citizens on Almadam are over 60 years old. Does the municipality, through the province, fund accessibility to support aging populations? And does the $8 million in available provincial parks funding this year offer any new funding avenues for Pondville Beach through the municipality?
So I'm going to start with the second part of your question, because I spoke with Trevor on that amount of money today, because it certainly was catching my attention. These are not funds that are available to the municipality to apply for, is what he's informed me about it. Sorry, and that's our MLA Trevor Boudreau for those watching. But it's essentially almost like it sounds to me like it's more like a maintenance budget that the province-wide that they're using to support the 130 parks that they have. And so priorities have been submitted to this provincial list for all of these 130 parks. I think the budget had been, was it 1 or 2 million, and then it jumped up to the 8. He indicated it's now closer to the $10 million mark. Is where it has landed, but it's not funds that the municipality would be able to apply for. So the short answer, I guess, to the second part of your question is it's not really, it doesn't present a funding opportunity for the municipality. And then the first part of your question was kind of around age-friendly and accessibility. So you would have heard, I guess, a little bit earlier that absolutely our accessibility committee is working really hard to improve accessibility in the county. We have 14 actions that we are trying to pursue with the next, I would say, hopefully 3 years, including Rick Hansen certification of our buildings, and things like activities in the community. We're really looking for more public engagement and more, I would say, first voice opinions at that accessibility committee table. So far, all of the activity from that group has been funded through the operational funds of Richmond County. So we've been taking on those costs and treating them as our own. They haven't been funded by any external source.
I want to know directly how this accessibility issue can be used to fund things like Moby Mats, like
Right.
Programming,
Yeah.
maybe resurfing a parking lot, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Benches,
So-
picnic tables. How are we looking here at this
Yeah.
in your mandate? How does the municipality fit in that?
Right, so if it's municipal owned, which I know Pondville Beach isn't, then we have the ability to invest in those types of things that you just talked about. In the case of Point Michaud, where we have a letter of authorization of some sort, or we have an application where, because it's a lifeguarded beach, we've been able to look at the Moby Mats there. So it would depend, we'd either need to own the infrastructure, or we would need to have some sort of authorization from the owner, an official authorization, in order to be able to legally invest there, I guess, to do those kinds of things.
What we're asking as part
Yeah.
of this committee mandate is to find ways and understand how engagement can work between
Yeah,
municipal and provincial bodies to be able to afford these
Yeah.
monies that are flowing down,
Yeah.
to be used in places for people who require them.
Yeah. So,
Everywhere.
yeah.
So I don't really want to know anything about how many years from now it's going to be. This is imminent. We have 70% of our population that's over 60.
Yeah.
They need accessibility to their regions now. That in itself is something that the municipality should look at to work on liaisoning with the province.
Yeah.
So when they come down with a $10 million budget, it makes sense to put it in the places in their own communities where they can enjoy for free.
Yeah. So I totally agree with you. I see, Melanie, you have.
Yeah, no,
Councillor
I totally
Melanie.
agree.
Yeah.
And I understand your, the urgency, but I guess I would just say, it took us, and Shannon, you may know, although I think it was Laurier that did the letter of authority at Point Michaud, but we had that building on the books for like a couple of years before we could get authority to even do it.
Yeah.
Like the wheels turn slowly. So I think you're right, like working with the
Yeah.
MLA and ourselves is the answer to getting these things to move quickly, but understanding that we don't overdepend on how quickly those things happen, right?
Yeah.
Because we had it all budgeted, set aside for the recreation building there, and it took, I think, 18 or 19 months, I think, for us to get a sign off.
What I'm asking is that our municipal council actually engages with the province in a meaningful way for Pondville Beach to ensure that we can find some way to grow the way that the province looks at accessibility to the point that they can actually affect it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just do
Yeah.
lip service.
So another piece of information that the MLA provided me with today is that the province is undertaking a management plan for Pondville Beach. And so that's going to involve exactly that kind of engagement. And I think it's kind of perfect timing. I know we wish things would happen more quickly, but the fact that you have a group now of folks together to really articulate specifically what you're looking for as this management plan is being designed, to us as a municipal council, that's golden because we can help funnel that message as well. If they're hearing it from the community, they're hearing it from the municipality, it can be included in the management plan. And so my understanding is work's going to start on that. I don't really have a sense of time frame, but he had, his indication from, to me today was that MLA Boudreau was that natural resources and renewable staff we're going to be getting started on that management plan. So that was today.
Did I misunderstand when we had the discussion that the funds available at the provincial level had to be requested by the municipal level?
Yeah, because I asked Trevor about that today, and that $10 million fund, or $10 million fund, it's not a fund to which we can apply.
And what I think we had said there, Lisa, is that most times, we're looked at as almost, and I said this the other night, we're looked at as almost the last line of defense, right? So it comes from the feds, comes from the province, then it comes down to the municipal level, right? So we didn't say we had to request it, but if the province was like putting money in for Moby mats and all this stuff here,
Yeah.
whatever, they might say, well, municipal council, what are you guys doing? Right? So I'd like to see what you guys are doing here, because as I said, we're looked at as the last line of defense, but situations like this, we're almost looked at as the first line of offense.
Right.
So if we're gonna be the first line of offense here, which we are, which is great to see, hopefully that gets the attention of our MLA and our province and the federal government. But yeah, no, I don't, maybe I just spoke, but I don't think I said that, we have to request money from Trevor Boudreau, no.
I think that's a great idea that that the province is making or starting a parks management plan, and the rest of them are, because like everything else, I think when the province has to allocate money, it's hard just to give out money and then say, well, we don't have a plan, but we're just gonna shove you money. So by them saying, we're gonna start the park management plan, I know it may be a lengthy process, however, because there's been several done already, they may be able to copycat off of what's there and allocate it to the Pondville Beach and make it a lot shorter plan. As to the comment earlier about the the funding, I don't know that we, I know that we don't, the money isn't funded through the province through us. However, I think we can definitely allocate on behalf of Pondville Beach through our municipality to say that this is what we'd like to see, you know,
Do you
via
mean
Trevor.
advocate?
Advocate.
Yeah.
So I think we can definitely do that. I don't see there,
So, and that's something I'm thinking to suggest, that conferring with Troy here is, you know, could we put a letter together?
Yeah.
Maybe jointly with your group, maybe with some of the, content that you've described here this evening, and indicate that we're eager to participate in the management plan consultation, and that we see that there's some pressing need at Pondville Beach, and opportunities for investment.
I mean, we can also show that, through the planning and through the, accessibility, it's something that we strive
Yeah.
towards, and by the province doing, engaging in this, it's something that they actually help us,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
mandated by the province anyway, so it's, it's one of our top priorities as well that we push. So I think a letter to the MLA, it'll climb the ladder.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's already working. I mean, you look at this news media release again today, and it's talking about community involvement, community engagement,
Yeah.
all this stuff, right? It's talking about accessibility.
What you're doing is working,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
I
right?
think
It's working, yes.
How does the municipality fit? Is it a letter of support that we're going to give?
Well, it's advocacy at this point, Lisa, because we don't own the property. We don't have any authorization to, because I think what you're asking really is, will we spend some money there? And we simply can't, because we don't own it and we don't have any authorization to do so. Now, if we could figure out some land-based things that we could be doing, maybe?
$28,000 of this build in Point Michaud came from what was called a Canada Community Building Fund,
Yeah.
which was the gas tax
It's
fund,
infrastructure.
which
There's-
also supports tourism and accessibility
Yeah.
on top of all the infrastructure under the ground that we need to run a municipality. That is a fund that's funded yearly through the gas tax. $500,000 a year through the gas tax goes into that fund.
It's CCBF now, our
Right.
gas tax, yeah,
And not always 500,000.
and not always.
So is that fund available to take care of some of the issues that we might be looking at Pondville Beach? To do things like support walking programs, support yoga on the beach, support painting in the park, support meditation and mental
So what you're
health?
talking about are activities, though, they're not infrastructure.
To support those activities, we will require some infrastructure.
Right, and if there was, if those activities were to land in our recreation programming, say, for example.
Right.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not guaranteeing that they will, because we have a staff this big, trying to do this many things. Hopefully, there's some room there that we can make it all work, or some of it work. But at the end of the day, if infrastructure is required, and it's in the risk mitigations in place because it's land-based, until such time as maybe there's a lifeguard there, then, and if we do need infrastructure, then we could look at applying CCBF money, or allocating CCBF money to support that activity. But we would need a letter of authorization from the province.
I'd be willing to make a motion tonight, just that we ask that a letter be drafted to
Yeah.
the MLA and to the minister, advocating on behalf of the group and behalf of all residents of Richmond County.
Of the provincial park.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
order to ask that, infrastructure needs be addressed.
Sure.
Yeah, I
that's-
think it's encouraging to see again going
Yeah.
into this news media release today that it is going in the right direction, but I would support that motion, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna check in. So Deputy Warden has made a motion that council write a letter in support of the Pondville Beach Provincial Park, and it's been seconded by Councillor Sean Sampson.
I would ask is, at this time, could we also request a letter from the province on the use of the land?
Okay, so maybe that's a separate question, and I might need to ask you what you mean on that a little bit, but at this point, maybe I'll ask for a vote on the existing.
Can I have a question?
Yep.
Can I ask for a letter of detailed deficiencies as noted by your group to help craft the letter? So that we can speak to points with clarity?
We want to be speaking from the same zone.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to work with the municipality as well as we can.
Great. Okay, so any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. And then, so this question you have about the property?
Right, so we've already explained to the people in the galley that in order for us to put mats down, or in order for us to use the property, we would require a letter from the province. And I know time is tough and time is close, so I'm just, I don't think it would hurt us to ask for a letter from the province if,
Do you mean an authorization?
an authorization.
So I think we need to be able to say what we want, what we can afford to, to do there and what the plan is before we get that. I think.
Right, but I believe,
You know what I mean?
I agree, but I believe Lisa's going to provide us with a summary of what she's looking for, and maybe, and it's an ask at this point, it's
Oh,
not.
That doesn't mean that we're able to support all of the applicants.
Right.
Oh, 100%, but it
Right,
also means
so-
that it gets the wheel motion, it gets the wheels in motion to provide.
Yeah, I think part of that,
The Moby,
So-
I think part of that
Deputy Warden.
request, and part of that letter has to have that request in it,
Correct.
to move it.
They would be separate.
They would be separate
Well,
letters.
just indicating that we're gonna be looking for,
Yeah.
just to put it on the radar, because there's no sense asking for a Moby mat
There's a,
and this
yeah.
and that, and not have it in a letter.
some of those things can only be supported with the lifeguard program, like Moby-Mat, for instance, they have to check those daily.
But maybe that letter of
So,
support
we gotta
is to look
start-
for lifeguards to be
Exactly.
positioned at that
Right.
beach, right? Like,
That would
you
be
have,
the
you
start.
can't put the cart before the horse, right?
Yeah.
Like, I agree with you, but maybe that's part of the advocacy piece, right?
Yeah.
Is to advocate, is to look for lifeguards at the beach.
Yeah.
Then we can do all the other part,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as a starting point, there is a ton of infrastructure to
Yes.
And if it's
to
not a
Lisa's
lifeguard.
point, that needs to be addressed.
Again, but to the point, it doesn't mean it's gonna be a lifeguard and it's gonna be water activities, just to the point of, putting as much as the little doggy bag on the side.
Yeah.
We can't put it without the permission of the province,
So-
or the benches, so that anybody.
Why don't we ask staff to come back to us with some information on what that process is?
Great idea.
Yes.
Okay, because I think we need to better understand that. My understanding is there's an application form, but I think we need to just get that fleshed out. We'll ask staff to give us the information about what the process is and what's required before we can actually submit something. And then we'll know, one way or the other.
Here at Telile Community Television, we have been having a number of people in to offer their views on what's been happening at Pondville Beach and what they'd like to see happening. And one of the people you're going to meet right now comes from Pondville herself, and her family has roots in the area going back all the way to the 1850s. Her name is Margaret Herdman. Here's what she has to say about the Pondville Beach situation right now. And as we continue our coverage of the Pondville Beach issue here on Telile 24/7, we're pleased to welcome a resident of Pondville who has many reasons for wanting to be involved in the community campaign to help get restoration efforts going at Pondville Beach. Her name is Margaret Herdman. Margaret, thank you for joining me today here at Telile.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
So we wanted to get your specific thoughts about what this beach has meant for you and your family. And yours is a long history in terms of that particular impact. So what can you tell me about what Pondville Beach means to you?
Well, I won't start with me. I will start with my great-grandfather who fished off Pondville Beach in the 1850s, 60s, 70s.
Okay.
And he and his wife built the family home that we still own today on the beach road. And one of his daughters stayed in the home, and she married a fellow from Dundee, St. George's Channel at the time.
Sure.
And he had a mill on the brook that runs into the beach. And then my father left because he was a teacher and he had a fairly good education, and there was no availability for work around here at that time. So he left, but we came down every summer for a month at least. And this kind of became our home. And then when I married and had children, we came every summer. This is home for us. And I moved here probably about 12 years ago, and absolutely love it, and I'm still on the same property. And I have grandchildren that love coming. Pondville Beach, when are we getting to go again, they don't live here, but they love to go, so.
What was it like coming back for those summers as a young person and getting to experience Pondville Beach at that point in your life, and even as a mother taking your own children there? What were those days like for you?
Well, thoroughly enjoyable to start with, and we went every single day to the beach when we were here, sometimes twice. With our kids, often twice. We'd go in the early morning and go down later when it wasn't quite as busy, because it was always busy. And when I was young myself, I absolutely loved it. It was much nicer than being at a pool or something like that. There's not the same atmosphere, right? So, yeah.
And it's been said more than once in our coverage of this issue that Pondville Beach is a rarity for Isle-Madame because it is a real sand-based beach. There's nothing like it anywhere else around the island, and very few places like it around Richmond County.
That's very true. Very, very true. Yeah, it's a delight. When I first moved here, and actually even before that, I used to come for the whole summer into the fall. I walked every single day, no matter what the weather was, across that beach all year long. And it was, you'd see people, but I walked early in the morning, so you didn't see a lot. But where I live, I see all the cars going down to the beach, and a lot of people walk the Pondville North Road to the beach as well. They walk across it, come back and get in their car and go back to Ayrshire or wherever, so.
Okay. Let's talk then about what it's been like for you in the present day, and even over the last couple of years living in Pondville at the family homestead and taking your grandchildren, but also seeing people going to the beach as well too. What is it like these days? And part of the reason I ask that is, what do you feel has changed about Pondville Beach that's bringing about the current campaign? What is the current experience like for you?
Well, I would express that in days gone by, there were lots of people, but not nearly the numbers that there are today, and not nearly the kind of damage that results if there isn't maintenance. And there's been absolute minimum maintenance, and that's a big issue in my mind. I mean, just look at the parking lot, for instance, and it's in terrible shape. So just a variety of things, yeah. I'm also involved with a small organization called Friends of Isle-Madame Provincial Parks. So our parks group uses Pondville Beach because that's a park. Our activities our focus is more on activities, education. So we have a storytelling event there, followed by a walk. Though we do have some people who are challenged for mobility issues come to these storytelling events. They can't walk, so they can't get out there. But yeah, that's our focus. It isn't so much on the maintenance. But I have noticed quite a difference in the deterioration of things, and nothing is being upgraded.
Now, this isn't the crux of our conversation today, but you were in the gallery on Monday evening for Committee of the Whole of Council, where Lisa Boudreau, who is chairing the current Pondville Beach Restoration Committee, brought the concerns of the community to Council. So this is now being looked at the municipal level and the provincial level. Your thoughts sitting in that meeting and just sitting with me now about where we go from here? Do you have optimism? What do you feel?
Oh, yeah, you have to be optimistic, right? And I think the province will step in, and I'm pretty sure the municipality will be very supportive, which is a big issue that we need lots of support. But during that council meeting, the thing that I noticed was the active living strategy presentation that was brought forward. And after listening for about a minute and a half, I thought, my goodness, this is just directed totally at our beach. All the kinds of things that happen, the local issues, the fact that mental health is really helped by being able to be out in the sunshine and the fresh air and the water around, and physical health. You know, like it just is, it's just ongoing. You could just, it just fits perfectly into that active living strategy, so.
It all ties together, yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've covered a lot of ground in a short time. Margaret, as I thought we might, did you want to add anything else about all of this just before we wrap up?
I would like to very much see an accessibility strategy put forward in there as well. That's a really important thing as far as I'm concerned. I have a number of friends who have mobility issues that always did go to Pondville Beach and always loved being there and can no longer do that. And somehow or other, I think that needs to change, because for people who have mobility issues, we need to, whatever kind of accessibility we need, we can't leave them sitting in a building all the time. That's not acceptable in this day and age. So encouraging that to happen is one of the things that we're strongly looking at too. So
Well,
I thank you for asking as well about.
It's no problem at all. We appreciate you coming in, and we look forward to seeing where this conversation on Pondville Beach goes. But in the meantime, Margaret Herdman, thank you so much for joining me today for Telile 24/7.
And thank you again for inviting me.
The Medicine Shoppe's location in Port Hawkesbury has turned heads on a number of occasions over the past couple of years in terms of innovative developments that have been used to help with the rollout of vaccinations and other aspects of local health care. For example, owner-operator Michael Hatt initially developed his mobile vaccination clinic to serve influenza vaccines, but it turned out to be a critical piece of infrastructure during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the Medicine Shoppe in Port Hawkesbury is one of several outlets across the province that are being designated as community health clinics by the Provincial Department of Health and Wellness. I spoke to Michael Hatt about this just a couple of days ago following the official launch of the new clinic at the Medicine Shoppe. Here's our conversation in Port Hawkesbury right now.
Under the primary care program, essentially pharmacies are taking on some of the roles and responsibilities previously designated just for physicians or nurse practitioners. To give you an example, pharmacists can now diagnose and prescribe for strep throat. We can order lab tests from the labs the same way a physician would. So in the past, a pharmacist could look at those numbers, but they couldn't ask for it. And what would happen is we were allowed to prescribe, but under certain rules and regulations and essentially red tape, we couldn't do it without having the lab work. So now we have the ability to request that lab work and do it all from start to finish. Before this project took place, it was traditionally our role. We would assess somebody, 9 times out of 10, we would deem it something that we couldn't do because of the roadblock of, say, lab work, for example. Now we can send that off and complete the process. We're trying to avoid the backlog for people seeing their primary care providers, such as physician or nurse practitioner, and also trying to remove some of the backlog of the accredited ERs. We are doing it on an appointment-based system. So please don't just walk in and expect to get service. Yes, we still have a means for doing that. So I want to back it up for a minute. Sure. Most pharmacies in the province offer the select services. We still offer those select services. We just have a few more. But in order to organize everything, we're working on an appointment-based system. So there's a website that you can go and book your own appointment online, and you can book based on what it is you need. You can still call the store and speak with an individual, and we'll help you book on your behalf. So we operate on an 8-hour basis. Every day we allow 6 hours for public booking, so people booking themselves or us booking them for them. Then at the end of each day, we open up a 2-hour bank for the following day, and that's for the urgent care stuff. So for urgent care, we're considering that to be strep throat, bladder infections, if you've been bit by a tick and you need an assessment, or if you have an outbreak of, say, shingles. That 2-hour window is for same day or urgent day bookings. I would say especially in the last 3 to 4 months, it's become a another pandemic of people who cannot access healthcare in a timely manner. And that's the goal of the primary care clinic is a pharmacist is going to do it on a quicker scale than, say, your primary care provider. Not to downplay the primary care provider. It's just that, we're assessing the things that we have within our scope of practice to assess, freeing up their time for the things that we can't do that they can accelerate on their end.
Now, you might be wondering how Michael Hatt and the Medicine Shoppe in Port Hawkesbury became part of this new province-wide program. Here's the explanation.
So it's really an amazing program, and it's an amazing initiative across Canada. So to put it in perspective right now, every jurisdiction in Canada is got their eyes on Nova Scotia and how this works. And also to put it in perspective, we're getting phone calls from pharmacists that live across Canada wanting to come home. The Blue Nosers want to come home to work here. That's how desirable it is from a pharmacist point of view. We did apply. This project came about, the rumors started about it about a year ago. We're in phase 2. So the initial phase 1 saw 12 pharmacies across the province get it. We were not part of the phase 1 project, but we've been picked up for phase 2, which is amazing because when phase 1 was distributed, the closest pharmacy for the Strait area was New Glasgow or Sydney. There was a huge gap in coverage of service for the Strait area. So we're really happy that we've got it, and we've got a spot somewhere where residents from Victoria, Richmond, Inverness, Guysborough, Antigonish can come and access this if they need it.
I conducted this interview with Michael Hatt just after a formal launch of the Community Pharmacy Primary Care Clinic at the Medicine Shoppe, and he had a number of special guests to help him celebrate this momentous occasion.
Today we had a member of the Pharmacy Association in Nova Scotia who's really been spearheading this. Obviously, we know that the healthcare crisis in the province right now. Nova Scotia Health sent out a request. How do we fix it? Pharmacy Association put up their hand and said, our pharmacists have the abilities to help, but there's so much red tape we have to eliminate. So that's what this pilot project is about, is eliminating the red tape to allow us to work to our full scope. So we had representation from the Pharmacy Association. We also were lucky to have Alan McMaster, MLA for Inverness, Trevor Boudreau, MLA for Richmond here today. Obviously, with this program and in our location, we're also here for Guysborough and Antigonish and Victoria, like I say. And we are seeing that. We are seeing people who don't have a primary care provider traveling. So no, we've been lucky to have that, and we had some community members here as well. We had a few of the local nurse practitioners that were in attendance as well.
In the meantime, Michael Hatt and his Medicine Shoppe staff are adjusting to their changing role at the latest stage of the COVID-19 pandemic. Only a couple of weeks ago, the World Health Organization declared that COVID-19 was no longer a worldwide medical crisis. However, the disease still exists, including right here in Nova Scotia. At the same time, Hatt and his Medicine Shoppe staff are dealing with the changing realities of the virus while still getting vaccinations out.
Well, luckily during the pandemic, with the ability of having our mobile clinic, we far exceeded our expectations as far as delivery of COVID shots. At last count, we were over 14,000. That's including boosters, which had we not done that, we wouldn't have been able to do. Right now, as far as COVID vaccines are concerned, we're still delivering them. We still do have weekly clinics. The demand for it certainly has died down. I mean, most people have had their series of shots and are getting boosters, and they're still free to the public, and we still offer them and gladly accept patients. But demand has decreased for sure. Along with this new clinic that we have, though, there's been a shift in gears. So before If you needed a routine immunization like tetanus or pneumonia shots or diphtheria shots, you either had to go to your primary care practitioner or you had to go over to public health. Another aspect of this pilot is pharmacy is now doing what we call the public immunizations. So whatever public health would provide you, we can now do too, free of charge. So we're shifting gears now so much as stepping away from COVID, still doing it, but now we're focusing on the routine immunizations that people may have missed over the last few years because of the concentration on COVID shots. We'll be using the mobile clinic again during flu season. If our primary care clinic works well, we would be looking at trying to integrate something with the mobile clinic as well. Obviously, we have communities, Louisdale, Arishat, Judic, down Route 19, that don't have a lot of healthcare coverage. And accessibility is still an issue. If we can get this clinic up and running smoothly, we'll look at then bringing the clinic to elsewhere. Basically, bringing back a house call.
As Michael Hatt looks back on a 3-year period in which COVID-19 exposed the cracks in Nova Scotia's healthcare system, he is grateful for the staff that have surrounded him and worked with him throughout this difficult time, and he's looking forward to working with them into the future as the new community pharmacy primary care clinic takes shape at the Medicine Shoppe.
Well, I'd be lost without my staff. They are fantastic. They go above and beyond. For the last 3 years, I've asked them to give 110%, and they've given 120. So I've just been amazed. Kind of based on your question. So 20 years ago when I started pharmacy, pharmacy was changing. I was one of the very first new graduates that was under a new program that was focusing on what pharmacists could do. And when we graduated, all of our professors said, someday you'll be able to work to the full scope of your practice as you've been taught. And it really never came, but it took the pandemic for it to happen. And what we are seeing now is, the bindings have been removed. We've been said, okay, you pharmacists are capable of this much. We're going to let you work to the full potential that we know you can do. So this has been a day that's been 20 years in the making. So it's definitely a celebration for all of our staff because we know that we can do it. We've been given this pilot for a year to prove that we can do it, and we're already proving that we can do it. And the pandemic, like I say, it's unfortunate that that's what it took, but our ability to provide COVID shots in a civilized manner that we did showed the Department of Health that, okay, pharmacy is an untapped resource that we can utilize, and we really think that we can make a difference.
There was a time not long ago when the outlook was grim for the Richmond County Literacy Network. An announcement from the network's board of directors back in February made it seem like 30 years was going to be the exact length of existence for the network as it was threatened to be closed down this past winter. However, an influx of new members have helped to revitalize the Literacy Network, and at the forefront of this charge is the new chair of the Richmond County Literacy Network, Paula Kavanaugh. I spoke with Paula right here at the Telile Community Television Studios in Arishat. Here's our conversation about why she decided to take the lead on the Literacy Network's board of directors and what we can expect from the Literacy Network in the near and distant future. And we're pleased to welcome with us the new chair of the Richmond County Literacy Network. She is Paula Kavanaugh, and she's here to tell us about the Literacy Network's latest activities and the history leading up to where we are right now. Paula, thank you for joining me here on Telile 24/7 today.
Thank you, Adam, for having me.
What led you to the Literacy Network, and what's it been like for you working with it?
Well, I think what led me here really comes down to when the news came out in February that they were looking at closing, really understanding and really looking at that, being surprised and thinking of all of the people I knew, very skilled people who'd worked for literacy. a lot of parents and community members over the years that I'd worked with who really appreciated the programming that they had from literacy. And then also my own daughter, who received her book each month, who loved to pick up the mail and receive her book each month from the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And all those pieces to me really had represented, I had always held Richmond County Literacy Network in high regard for the work that they did. And the thought that that was going to be a loss to our community really kind of prompted me to step up and take action to see what we could do to save that programming for our community.
Were you surprised? What was your general reaction when you found out that this organization that had 30 years of history in Richmond County could be on the verge of disappearing forever?
I was quite surprised, and perhaps I shouldn't have been, in as much as I wasn't actively involved in it at that point. I knew of it, I held it in high regard, but wasn't actively involved myself. And I think that was perhaps a common piece where these programs are happening, these organizations are working tirelessly, and sometimes we take for granted the amount of work that goes into that. And so that piece for me, I was surprised. I didn't know that was even on the table. And so it was the piece for me that, okay, if help is needed, then I would like to respond to that.
Conversations that we've had with some other members of the Literacy Network, including the vice chair at the time, Lynn Wombold, have suggested that there was a real turnaround and a real revival of the Literacy Network, especially in terms of getting active members involved. And you were one of those that heeded the call, but can you tell me what it was like going to those first couple of meetings in February and March, basically designed to save this organization? What was the mood there like, and what did you feel like going through it?
I think the very first meeting that we attended, and it was myself and several others who all, like you say, heeded that call. I think we'd heard it, we were surprised. We wanted to see what could be done, if anything. And so I think the initial reaction was very surprised from the existing members that, oh, people are interested, people are willing to step up and help. And like I say, I think that complacency piece of taking for granted that this is happening without realizing the amount of work that goes into it, and now that it's been, threat of taking it away, I want to help, right? And so there were enough of us who stepped up to that piece that, we were able to, that revival piece, hopefully, right, to be able to put those pieces together to keep this going, because we do see the value, right? It's a group of very committed individuals who see the value of what Richmond County Literacy Network brings to the community, and we're not quite ready to let that go yet.
Well, one of my own experiences with volunteer groups and with non-for-profits, especially those that experience volunteer burnout, as we've seen in different parts of Richmond County and across the Strait area, there's a risk that you run as a new person coming on board that someone will immediately turn to you and say, could you be the chair? Could you sit on the executive? And I just wonder, what was the process for you in saying, yes, I'll put my name forward, not only for the executive, but also for the chair of the board? What were you thinking there?
Well, my thinking there was really quite simply, if not me, then who, right? Part of recognizing that this need was there was having to be willing to step up and do something about it, right? Not just knowing it was there and waiting for someone else, but to step up myself. And so it really came down to, okay, if I'm willing to do this, I'm going to commit to do this. Now, I did it with what I would consider a very strong board of people, that I'm not doing it alone. But it really was that piece, if not me, then who?
So it's one thing to say that you felt that you should put your name forward and say, if not me, then who? But can you talk to me a little bit about the team that you have around you now? It seems like it's a real mix of people who've been involved with the Literacy Network for a long time and newcomers like yourself. What is that spirit and what is that feeling like for you right now as you look at the rebirth of the Richmond County Literacy Network?
Well, I think the real strength that we have is that it's actually all new board members, in terms of all new people coming to that. So we do have a couple of people who were former staff, who bring with them some of that wealth of corporate knowledge of how things are running and what programming and those pieces that are very, very important. But then also the fresh perspective of, okay, this is what the history has been. How do we move forward and what do we want this to look like in the future? So, I mean, there's myself coming from education as a psychologist. There's Ann Levitt with her wealth of experience in the community board and governance, right? She brings that with her from the university, her university background. We also have Margaret Gracie as secretary, who comes from education as well. So she has that wealth of background, bringing with her that knowledge of programming and teaching. And then Kieran Lachlan Levitt, who is our our treasurer, who has a bookkeeping background, extensive technology and IT experience, and who also previously worked for Richmond County Literacy Network.
Many of our Telile viewers will recognize a lot of those names, and
I
we've
think
worked
so.
personally with a couple of those people at different projects here at Telile, so good to see that happening. So now, what would you describe as the top priority, or even the top 2 or 3 priorities for the Literacy Network right now with this new core, this new group of people? What is the immediate priority that you're looking at saying we need to take care of this right away?
So our top priority right now is reestablishing some of the core programming that Richmond County Literacy Network has been known for all these years. So currently furiously working on our application to Nova Scotia School of Adult Learners, and that would be representing our programming of GED prep, adult learning programs, and also the essential basic skills, one of which was, seniors in computer literacy, basic computer literacy, which was a very well attended program throughout the years for Richmond County Literacy. We have an aging population, we have a strong senior population who need those digital skills, right? And so that's, top priority for us as a new board is there. I can also say that we're looking at new projects and priorities that we may want to bring on as we go. We're kind of exploring our options and really looking at what are the needs in our community, right? So we know these core programming pieces, but also wanting to connect with our community partners about what needs are out there and what other programming could we be offering, and what do we want to look at. Another thing that with any of our programming offers is that we've learned a few things through COVID, some good and some bad, but one of the key things was the advantage to a rural community for hybrid learning, and bringing in some of those pieces and the success that was had during COVID to reduce barriers for people who, transportation is an issue. When we want to find the balance moving forward of that in-person community piece, right, that community building that comes with in-person learning, but also pairing it with the accessibility and the reduction in barriers that comes in a rural community when you move things online, right?
Now, you mentioned community partners, and one of the things that we do focus on here at Telile 24/7 is the role of various levels of government in the community organizations that happen in our area. And I know that just a couple of months ago, when it looked like all might be lost for the Richmond County Literacy Network, that the municipality and the municipal council did actually step up with a proposal to cover the cost of book distribution from the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And I just wonder, what is your relationship right now like with the municipal council and the provincial government as well? What's that like?
So at this point, you'd mentioned what are our top priorities. This application in Nova Scotia School of Adult Learners has been on the forefront with a deadline. And so there are some other things that are hot topics that we want to explore that we haven't quite gotten to yet. And so that would be one of them, certainly looking at the Dolly Parton Imagination Library being a really incredibly important program. When I look at you talk about my piece with Richmond Literacy and my personal interest in it, when you look at the health outcomes that are related to literacy, right? Strong literacy, strong life outcomes. And for me, one of the strengths of Richmond County Literacy Network was it it took care of all ages, from birth with the Imagination Library, right through to seniors with the digital literacy piece. And so that's something that, you know, we are actively looking at, and will be looking to explore further. We do have a couple of interested community partners, but that hasn't been finalized yet. And so looking at what that looks like moving forward is still kind of under review.
Sure. All right, we've covered a lot of ground here in a short time, as I thought we might. Did you want to add anything else about all of this, Paula, and just about where we go from here for the Literacy Network, just before we wrap up?
I think that's good for me, Adam. I think the biggest thing is that I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation, and I really look forward to working together in the future as we work to strengthen that programming and really support the needs of the residents of Richmond County.
Well, we're always glad to see a happier ending for a story that does have some fraught nerves in many corners of the county. So we're glad for your service, and we appreciate you coming here to speak to us here at Telile. Paula Kavanaugh, thank you so much for joining me here on Telile 24/7 today.
Thank you.
All right. Paula Kavanaugh is the new chair of the board for the Richmond County Literacy Network. We're speaking to her here at the Telile Studios in Arishat. And there you have it. That wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you for tuning in, and a special thank you to my interview guests this week, Margaret Herdman, Michael Hatt, and Paula Kavanaugh. And just a reminder, if you'd like to see the entirety of the Committee of the Whole meeting for Richmond Municipal Council that took place on May the 8th and had the discussion about the Pondville beach restoration efforts, you can watch that meeting on Telile's YouTube channel, along with every single episode of Telile 24/7, including this one, and individual segments and interviews from our shows. And you can also watch every single episode of our sister program, Roundtable. Don't forget to follow Telile on other social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you have any thoughts about what you've seen over the past hour here on Telile 24/7, or you'd just like to comment on what might be a good interview or story for a future edition of the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me directly. My phone number is 902-625-8863, and you can reach me by email using the address adamjrcook, cook with an E, @gmail.com. You can also contact Telile Community Television directly with your suggestions and your thoughts. The station phone number in Arishat is 902-226-1928, and the best email address to use is telile@telile.tv. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for joining me on Telile 24/7. I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.